All right, class. So in today's lesson, we're going to be looking at the distance formula. Now, just looking at what distance is how far 2 points are from each other on a coordinate plane. Okay. Now, if we look at the actual formula, that formula do kind of look a little difficult, but what we're going to do is we're going to learn how to use it step by step. Okay. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to identify the coordinates, which means we need to label the 2 points. First point that they put on the paper or they put in the question, we're going to label that as x1, y1. The second point they put in the question or on the paper is going to be x2, y2. Okay? Then we're going to take and we're going to subtract the coordinates. What means is we're going to find the difference. Different means subtract between the x values and the y values. So what we're going to do is we're going to take x2 and subtract it from x1, and we're going to take y2 and subtract it from y1, and that'll give us our difference. Okay? Then we'll move to step 3. Step 3 says set up the formula. So we're going to enter the results from step 2 into the template. Now the template that we have, it shows that we have the square root symbol. Okay, that's the first thing. We're going to open a parenthesis, and then we're going to put the result of the x value that we get. We're going to close it and then put squared. Then we're going to put a plus sign, open a parenthesis, then we're going to type in the result for the y value. We're going to close it and then put squared. Okay? Now, after we fill in our template, the next thing is we need Desmos. We're going to enter that template into Desmos. So we must enter that template into Desmos from step 3 exactly how it is set up. If we do not enter it in exactly how we set up, our result or our answer could be wrong. Okay? So now let's walk through this as an example. It says find the distance between 4, 5 and -4, -1. Step 1 says that we need to label. So if you notice that I labeled x1, y1 as the first order pair that they gave me. And then in my second order pair, I labeled it as x2, y2. Step 2 says find the difference. We're going to be subtracting. So I'm going to do my x values. So the first x value was 4. So I got 4 minus -4, which is the second x value. And when you do that, that'll give you 8. And then we're going to do our y values. The first y value was 5. We got to subtract that from the second y value, which is -1. And that's going to give me 6. Okay? Now, once I find those differences, I need to fill in my template. And in my template, I must first start out by writing my square root symbol. Then underneath it, I'm going to open a parenthesis, type in 8, because that is the result of the difference between the x values. I'm going to close it, put squared. Then I'll put a plus sign behind that, open another parenthesis. Then I'm going to put the 6. The 6 is the result of the y values, finding the difference between those two. And then I'm going to close it and put squared. Okay? That template helps me make sure that what I put in Desmos is correct. Okay? Now, if you notice in step 4, that's when you go to Desmos. And if you can see between both of them, this one and the one that I typed in Desmos, they look exactly the same. I have my square root symbol, parenthesis 8, closed it, squared, plus open parenthesis 6, closed it, squared. And then that gave me my result as being 10. Now that we've seen what it should look like and how the steps actually work for us, let's go through and do a couple more examples. Okay, so in our next example, it says, what is the approximate distance between 7, 5, and 9 and 11? Okay, so step 1 says we got to now go in and label our x1, y1, x2, y2. So the first point they gave me was 7, 5, so I'm going to label that as x1, y1. Second point was 9 and 11, so I'm going to label that as x2, y2. Okay, now after that, we got to find the difference for those values. So I'm going to do my x first. So the first one was 7. So I'm going to do 7 minus 9. And 7 minus 9 will give me -2. Okay, and then we got our y values. That's going to be, my first y was going to be 5. And that's going to be -11. And when we do 5 minus 11, that's going to give us -6. Okay. Now once we do that, we're going to fill in our template. So our template starts out with the square root symbol. Then we do a parenthesis. We got -2 squared plus open parenthesis -6 close parenthesis squared. Now we have our template. Now we go to Desmos and we type that in. So let's pull up Desmos. So in Desmos, we're going to hit our square root symbol first. We're going to do a parenthesis, -2, close parenthesis, squared, plus, parenthesis, -6, close parenthesis, squared. And if you notice that when we do that, we get 6.3 with a whole bunch of numbers behind it. Okay? Now, if we was to ask to round this to the tenths place, the tens place is the 3. Now the number behind that is a 2. That's not big enough to make it go up 1, because for it to be, or to go up 1, it has to be 5 or higher. So the answer that we will use for this example will be 6.3. Okay? So we go back and we'll put 6.3. Okay? And then let's fill in our template here on our notes, so we know what we have. We got to put a -2 in there and a -6. And then what you'll notice is it looks exactly the same, and our answer came out to be 6.3. All right, moving on to the third example. It says a triangle has vertices at J, which is at 8,7, K, which is at 8,3, and L, which is at 1,3. It says, what is the length? So we're looking for the length of the side that deals with JL. Okay? So even though we have 3 order pairs, they only want us to focus on J and L. So K has no input or value at this for this problem. Okay? So because of that, we're going to label. The first one came up was J, so we're going to label that as X1, Y1. The second one was L, so that's going to be X2, Y2. Okay? So now we found the differences between the X values and the differences between the Y values. So that's going to give me my X side first, which is going to be 8 minus 1. 8 minus 1 is going to be 7. And then the other one for our Y values, the first one was 7. And the second one is 3. So it's all minus. The difference means minus. So 7 minus 3 is going to be 4. Now we're going to take and set up our template. So we do our square root symbol, open parenthesis, we're going to put our 7 in there, close it, squared, plus, open parenthesis, 4, close parenthesis, squared. Okay? So when we go to Desmos, we're going to type in the square root symbol, put our 7 in there, and then we're going to put our 4 in there on Desmos. So let's go get our result. So when we go to Desmos, bring up our keyboard, we put the square root, open parenthesis, 7, close parenthesis, squared, plus, open parenthesis, 4, close parenthesis, squared. Alright, so we got a decimal again, and we're going to round it. So if looking for a number that could be close to it, or if they ask us to round to a certain number, that's what we have to do. But here we're just going to get close. So if we do 1 digit behind the decimal, that's the tenths place. So if we look at the 0, is the number behind it big enough to take it up? It has to be 5 or higher to round up to the next number, which 6 is 5 or higher. So that means we're looking at our answer for this one to be 8.1. So let's go back to our notes. And we can write 8.1 as our answer for that example. All right, so far we've seen 3 examples. We did 2 examples together. Okay? All we're doing is finding the distance between 2 points. We're making sure that we label, we subtract, and we fill in our template. When we fill in our template, we enter it into Desmos, we get a result, making sure we either find the approximate or we get as close as we can to the answers that we have to use depending on what the question is asking for. Okay? So now we're going to move on to the next example. All right, so moving on to our fourth example. it says, what is the approximate distance between point M and N? Now, in this example, they just gave us a graph. So we still got to find the distance, but because they gave us a graph, we're going to get the ordered pairs from point N and point M. And when we get those ordered pairs, we can do our distance formula. We can label, we can subtract, make our template, put it in decimals. Okay? So every time you find an ordered pair, you always start from 0. So from 0, I'm going to go to my X. So M is on 1. And then we go up to it. So that means it's on 3 for my Y value. So the order pair for M is going to be at 1 and 3. Okay? Same thing we're going to do for N. We start at our 0. We always go over. So it's actually over on 8. And then we count up until we get to N, which is also on 8. So the order pair for N is going to be at 8, 8. Now that we have our order pairs, we can label. This is going to be, the first one we got was X1, Y1. This one's going to be X2, Y2. Now we can do or find the distance or difference by subtracting. So that's going to be our X side first, which they gave us a 1 minus 8. 1 minus 8 is going to be -7. And then for our Y values, they gave us a 3 minus 8. 3 minus 8 is going to be -5. Alright, so once we get that, we can set up our template. So we do our square root, open parenthesis, we put the -7 in there, close, squared, plus, open parenthesis, we put our -5, close parenthesis, squared. So now that we have our template set up, making sure that we put it in Desmos correctly. So we go to Desmos so we can get our answer. Okay? So when we go to Desmos, we do square root, open parenthesis, -7, close parenthesis, squared, plus, open parenthesis, -5, close parenthesis, squared. What you notice is we get 8.6 and a whole bunch of numbers behind it. If we round that to the tenths place, the 6 is the tenths place. The number behind that is 0, not big enough to take it up. So that means 8.6 will be our answer for that one. So 8.6 is what we get. Alright, so now let's move to our last. Alright, so in the last example, it says triangle HIJ is a right triangle. It says, what is the length of HJ? So we got to know the length from here, from H to J. So it's the same concept. We got to get the order pair because it's on the coordinate plane. They did not give them to us. So we always start from the center. We go over. So we had to go over to -3, to which the line is H is on. And then we count up to it, which is up to 9. So that means that order pair for H is at -3, +9. Alright, we do the same thing for J. So we start from the center, we count all the way over to J, which is on the line 12. And then we go up to it, which is on line 1. So the order pair for J is going to be at 12 and 1. Okay, now we label those. So the first one they gave us was H. So that's going to be X1, Y1. The J was going to be X2, Y2. Alright, so now we find the difference. So we got our X, which is going to be -3 minus 12. That's going to give us -15. And then we do our Y values. That's going to give me 9 minus 1. 9 minus 1 is going to be 8. Okay, now we fill in our template. Our template says that we got a square root symbol, open parenthesis, which is at -15 now, close parenthesis, squared, plus, open parenthesis, 8, close parentheses, squared. Now that we have what we need, we can fill in our template down here at the bottom of the paper first, and then we go to Desmos. Now when we go to Desmos, we'll do square root, open parenthesis, negative 15, close parenthesis, square, plus, open parenthesis, 8, close parenthesis, square. When we do that, we'll notice that the final result came out to be 17. There's no decimals, so we don't have to round. So from there, our answer will be 17. All right, so now we finished our notes for distance formula. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate